Today, we're going to talk about the BXPA1, which is a combination DCC auto reverser, occupancy detector, transponding detector, and intelligent power manager. So let's get started with this right now. Hi, I'm Tom Kovichak, and this is Tom's Trains and Things. This channel was created to help other modelers who are in need of guidance in pursuing their dream of building a model railroad. And today, BXPA1 is the subject of our discussion. And the reason I'm doing this video is because I had some requests to do a video on this, to do a review on this from my viewers. So we're going to start on that right now. And the first thing that I'm going to tell you about is I already mentioned this in a live stream. And as you could see here, the little tabs on here to mount them is on the cover, and it is away from the base. So you cannot really tighten this down all the way. You have to keep it loose or just snug it up and make sure that you have, a screw on either side opposite each other, probably on a 45-degree angle like this. If you have it like this, it may still wobble, but probably the best way to do it is just go from one side to the other like this. The other thing that I noticed on this, it says that these connectors on here are easily removable, and that is not true unless you dig underneath with a screwdriver. What you see here, you see those potentiometers right next to the connectors. They get in your way when you're trying to remove these connectors, and it makes it very difficult. Now, it seemed easy right there because I had it already loose. And these are two different size connectors on here. You have the smaller connectors, which has 2, 4, 6, 8 pins on there, but the 4 center pins are not used at this moment. The 2 outside pins over here is for an external LED, and the 2 pins on this side over here is connected to an opto isolator inside. The larger connector on this side right here has the ins and outs. It is comparable with the AR1, which I have sitting right here. You have 2 pins on this side, which are the A in and the B in, and 2 pins over here, which are the A out and the B out. It's a little bit larger than the AR1, and this is a little bit smaller than, if you're familiar with the DS64 or the PR3, this is a lot smaller, and you can see it fits in the palm of my hand like that. Let's take a look at the documentation that you receive with the BXPA1. It gives you an introduction, installation notes, tells you it's for a home layout, blah, 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 tells you what the feeder wires and the bus wires should be. The BPX installation tells you to power it down, hook up the in A and in B and out A and out B, and it gives you a little thing about the DCS51. You may have to do the potentiometer all the way back to the left. Once you have installed the BXPA, there are several tests you should perform to ensure that it's properly functioning. Okay, and it tells you how to short against it, short against your inputs and short against your outputs to see if it's working. Now, I'm not sure if you really have to program address, if you're just going to use it as a reversing circuit. If you're going to use it for detection, then they recommend to put an address in here. There are no op switches that you need to change on here, but it gives you instructions on how to put it back to the default settings if you accidentally change the op switches on there. Now, going down a little bit further, it says advanced BXPA1 setup. It tells you to go online to find it. They don't give you very much instructions on there. Okay, so let me pull up the instructions. All right, when you go online, you find this page here, op switch setup. It tells you how to do the op switch, which is counterproductive because there are no op switches on there that you need to set, but it tells you how to reset it if you need to. Okay, trip speed, potentiometer, and trip amp potentiometer. Now, this is what you have to do when you're setting it up. You know, you just have to play around with these two potentiometers to set the speed of how fast it trips and what amps it trips at. So you have to have it all hooked up, run your train over the reversing section, and play around with the settings on those potentiometers. Additional connections. Now, it has an opto-isolated detection output. On the inside right here, these two pins here are hooked to an opto-isolator that's on the inside. But anyway, there's two other pins over on this side over here that you could connect to a bicolor LED along with a resistor, so you could have an external, say like on a panel. External status output, that's the XR and XG that I just talked about. Okay, LED indicators on there. It gives you an idea of what happens when you have a train going over top of your reversing section, and it tells you right there. And then it said set up locos and rolling stocks for transponding. Basically, they really don't tell you a lot in the instructions. They don't even have a diagram of this. This is all solid state. You have 10 MOSFET transistors over here on this side here. You have a microcontroller, MCU microcontroller over there. Here is your opto isolator, and here is a opto amp right there. So let's get this thing hooked up and see what it does. I hooked this up temporarily right here so you could see the unit and see the track at the same time. That push pin right there is the edge of the reversing section. Okay, and the other part of the reversing section is off camera. So let's power this thing up. Now, I did not do any adjustments on it. I just hooked it up and set it like that. And I tested it a few times, and so far everything worked good without doing anything with the potentiometers over here. I have yet to put in a bicolor LED over here. So we'll find out how this thing works. I'll show you how this thing goes. Okay. And you'll see it's about to enter the other end of the reversing section. And you'll see this ops light came on when it entered the reversing section to give you an indication that it is in that section. And as soon as it leaves, that will go out, and these lights over here will change when it hits the other end. So it went from red to green, and now the ops light goes out as soon as it leaves the circuit. And going back the other way, it's in the circuit, so you can see the ops light is on. You have a green LED down at the bottom, and when it leaves the other end, the ops light will go out, and that green LED will turn to red. So there you go. Now we're going to set an address into the BXPA1, and the way to do that is we need to apply power to it, and I have my Digitrax throttle hooked up to this. It's hooked up through the LocoNet through a UP5, and I'll apply power. Power on. I'll go into switch mode. You press the ID button and hold it in until the two LEDs flash back and forth. That way you know it's in the program mode. And so it's on 111 right now. I'm going to program this at 100. and you have to put a C command in there. So I'll put a C command in, and you'll see once I put the C command in there, the lights, the LEDs will quit flashing, and that tells you that it has taken the address. Okay, so now you see the ID light LED is the only one that's on, so it took the address. It is now addressed as 100. So that's all you have to do to set the address in your BXPA1. Since I don't have a BXP88 or BDL168, I cannot tell you how this will operate with that, but I do hook up a multimeter to the pins ON and OP to show you what happens when a train occupies that section of track that it is detecting. I have a red-green LED hooked up to the pins over here, and all that does is mimic the red-green LED over here to tell you which direction your circuit is in. And the other two pins on this side, the OP and ON, I have hooked up to a meter to give you an idea of what goes on with that. Let me put the power on here. And you can see as the green shows up here, it also shows green down here. Okay, I'm showing about 1 k ohm when there's nothing on the circuit. So let me put something on the circuit and show you what happens. Now we'll get the locomotive right there. Okay, now you have something on the circuit and it shows OL, so that means it's closed. We'll run down to the other end. And as soon as it hits, boom. Okay, we're still on the circuit. You can see that the LEDs changed to red because I'm right at the edge, but I'm still in the circuit, but now I'm out of the circuit. So it goes back to about 1 k ohm. Okay, let's reverse this again. And I'll stop it right as soon as it hits the circuit. As soon as the wheels hit the circuit, and you can see what happens there. We're still red because we haven't switched back the direction of the DCC signal on there. We won't do that until we hit the other end. And you can see once I come up to around the push pin, it's going to change to green. And let me slow it down here. So right there, it changes to green. And we're still on the circuit because we still got some wheels in the reversing circuit. So as soon as we clear it, it takes a little bit. It's not instantaneous. But there you go, about 1 k ohm. Overall, the BXPA1 is far superior to the AR1, which I have about 4 of them here. I'm probably going to replace all of them. Now, you don't get the clatter from the relay since this is solid state, and you also have occupancy detection on it. Now, this is a really good device right here. I didn't have to change anything on the potentiometers to get it to working. I just hooked it up, did not do any tests on it prior to hooking it up, and my locomotive ran back and forth through it with no issues at all. So I would say this is a pretty good buy if you're looking for a reversing unit. Since I don't have any other occupancy detection devices on here, I was kind of concerned about what the function was of those ON and OP. So I contacted Digitrax and asked them to explain it a little bit further. Their first response back was exactly what it said in the advanced setup. So I wrote them back and I said, for a modeler who doesn't know anything about the BXPA1 or occupancy detection, they would be kind of confused with that statement. So they wrote back pretty quickly. These outputs provide a opto-isolated pulse or trigger to activate, for example, a stationary decoder input to throw a switch to automate a reverse loop. Okay, so I'm going to have to play around with that to see if I can get that to work. That's going to be in another video sometime in the future, but for right now, this is going to be it. There's one thing that I would like to see on here, and I wish they would have done that instead of putting the red-green LED on there, because I really don't care what direction my reversing section is in. I would rather see, now this is an occupancy detector, now I would rather see a remote thing that I could hook up and put an LED on my panel to see when that section is occupied. Isn't that what this is for? The only way that you could tell if it's occupied is by looking at the unit itself. That's the only way you could tell. Well, why put an indication on there of the direction of the signal and not the occupancy? Something for Digitrax to think about. Listen up, Digitrax. YouTube is always coming out with new features, and I was lucky enough to be able to have one of these new features, and it is the join button. And if you would be interested in it, click on the join button, and there's a short video on there explaining what it's all about. So I'd appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and click that join button and you will receive special perks. It's you don't have to be a subscriber. You don't have to pay for anything to watch the regular videos. It's just something extra. If you become a member of Tom's Trains and Things, you will get your name up in the credits, and I'll have some different perks coming up pretty soon. So take a look at that. We have a lot of projects coming up in 2020, so keep your eye out for them. And until the next time, we'll see you.